today's day and age, electricity has become one of the basic necessities of our livelihood. With increasing focus on ensuring electricity for all and talk of reforms in the power distribution sector, the proposed amendments to the Electricity Bill 2014 has been in the limelight. Taking this into perspective, the need for amendments to the existing bill and its impending challenges was the focus of the workshop on Electricity Amendment Bill 2014 organized by IPPAI in Delhi recently. The opening address was delivered by Harry Dole, Director General of IPPAI.
The issue actually is not about the language. The issue is that there are some challenges which the sector faces, and whether the amendments will address those challenges is the approach that I would like to take, rather than focusing on the full stops and commas in particular clauses. First is this issue of PPP, the public-private partnership. Now the mindset needs to be changed. Now what do you mean by this? Have a look at New Delhi, the distribution circles of New Delhi. It is a public-private partnership. Nothing wrong with it. It's an excellent idea. But what's happening to it? You have 49% stake of the government. You have 51% stake of the private companies. So the rules of engagement are not clarified. Now there is a demand for transparency, judicial activism, and changing perceptions. And this is a major challenge. While hopefully, positively, the crisis on coal will be over shortly, the crisis on other things will be over. But the fact of the matter remains that there is a sense of overhanging cloud of uncertainty.
Amit Kapoor partner J. Sagar and Associates gave his views on the issues and challenges of the Electricity Amendment Bill 2014.
Much of the issues that have been raised, and they are all salutary, important, 24/7 supply, we've been hearing it about since 1995. Renewable energy, great idea, but we know that there is a need for feed-in tariff, which means that you need to bring subsidy from somewhere else. And that somewhere else is outside the realm of consumers. Because today we can't even charge consumers what the conventional energy is. But somehow in the power sector, we seem to believe that we can continue to purchase at 70, sell at 50 and survive successfully. That's where we are. So the question is that will all these cosmetic changes take us anywhere further? And are we looking at the fundamental problem of when you segregate wires from supply? Where will these 4 lakh or 3.5 lakh crores lie? In whose balance sheet will they hang? How will it impair their creditworthiness to take loans? Will they be able to service their day-to-day costs and operations? Will they be able to function and perform? How will they get repaid? So we need to go back to the brass tacks of understanding the basics and not pull wool over our eyes. And that is the heart of the matter.
As a member of the Standing Committee on Energy, VPS Badnore gave his views on the ways and means of tackling challenges of the proposed bill.
The basic issues have been raised by Amit Kapoor, and I think we must, and I will not give my mind out, but we have ways and means to tackle them. One of them is the subsidy and the subvention. And it's the biggest problem today. There's subsidy everywhere. But if there's a subsidy, it must be paid. And that is a very important thing. On the open access, we wanted to be mandated, and it is in the bill, that in 5 years you must have open access, not just in this distribution, all the way into, not just in transmission, but all the way to the distribution. Has it happened? This is the important thing. And all the issues that Amit has said, I think there's a way out. I'm not pessimistic. I'm very optimistic. Other countries have found their way out. We should also do it.
Following this, Pramod Dio, former chairman of CERC, gave an overview of the Electricity Amendment Bill 2014.
We were not looking at now monopoly. We are talking about there should not be a single buyer model. We should unbundle. Transmission should be a completely a neutral entity, and it must be open access transmission from day one. Second thing was generation was de-licensed. You did not require to go to Central Electricity Authority and get techno-economic clearance. You could set up your power station and supply to anyone. So concept of merchant power plant was also very much embedded in that. In fact, the Member of Parliament has very rightly said, there has to be a political consensus like we had when the 98 Act came, and one has to agree how are we going to deal with these issues. It's not that we can just brush them under the carpet and say okay. And since Member of Parliament here, I want to point out you are going in the opposite direction. If you are giving any freedom, whatever we could do, we could have people. And today the position is that CRC does not have any outside consultant. And that's what I want to happen. So we are looking at these things when we talk of this thing, amendments. We had to see and address these issues.
The first session was on the issues and challenges in implementation of separation of carriage and content and the role of new entities after reorganization of the DISCOMs.
So what is the issue of open access? Now, open access under the Electricity Act 2003 opens the power sector to a number of players by laying down provisions for development of power markets and allows a choice of power supply to the consumer. So I as a consumer should have a choice who I deal with. If I want to catch a flight today from Delhi to Bombay, I have a choice. If I don't like my mobile operator, I have a choice. If I don't like the TV that has been been with me for 4 years, I want to buy a new TV, I can buy a Samsung, I can buy an LG, I can buy God knows whatever I want. A mobile phone, same story. So we wanted to bring in the concept of choice. And the idea of choice then automatically creates the element of competition. Because then everybody starts competing for you, for your business. And the consumer expectation was that once you have competition and you have a choice, I don't like the power that he supplies, I can buy it from him, then there will be competition, and when there is competition, like there is in the airline business today, there will be lower tariffs, there will be better service, there will be more sensitivity, more efficiency, and better quality of supply.
Mahua Mukherjee, energy specialist of World Bank, spoke about the monopoly and competition in the supply chain of the electricity sector.
If we look at the supply chain, and we are talking about competitive markets. So if we just imagine, to oversimplify it, we've got the primary fuel, then we've got generation, transmission, distribution, and retail. Just that very simple chain. Let's look at monopolies and competitions up and down this chain. So the primary fuel is a monopoly. That's Coal India, right? Generation, we have some competition, but the procurement for the input for the generation comes from the monopoly, Coal India. So it's not an unfettered competition in generation either, because the generators cannot operate truly according to market forces. Then we come to transmission. So we've got the monopoly of the central transmission utility and the state transmission utility. They each have in their respective domains. Those are a monopoly. Then we come to distribution. We have come to a single buyer model now, so the DISCOM has practically the monopoly for all the reasons that were also very well described and talked about. So again, the DISCOM is, if you are a generator, you're basically looking at a PPA with a bankrupt DISCOM. And if you want to find your own other customers using open access, as Harry has extremely nicely explained just now, there are many ways and means to subvert that. So it's not going to happen.
Following this, Ravinder, former chairman of Central Electricity Authority, gave his address.
So number one, nothing like telecom is going to happen, and those who are thinking that will be disappointed. So, sir, second technical issue in separation of carriage and content is metering, energy accounting, this thing. And when you don't have territorial division among the suppliers, then you have, they are embedded in, in between. They are all, mingling in the same wire network. You need very advanced metering, real-time metering, three things: smart metering, 15 minutes wise, communication system, and then IT to integrate to do all that, which I roughly tell you, my guess is it will need 1 lakh per customer. We are going to vest in this carriage and content reform, sir. All the old existing PPAs will be vested with an intermediary company, and then the entire functioning of intermediary company has been kept a secret with the central government.
Gopal Saxena, director of BSES, spoke about the aspiration of implementing separation of carriage and content and how real open access is in the Indian context.
Change, transformation is the order of the day, and the future is always bright. Having said as much, I think there is need to introspect. Are our aspirations realistic? Is the deliverance mechanism sound? And 3, does it have it within us to be able to deliver? What is the aspiration? I mean, today, and I'm talking in the context only of content and carriage and open access. What is our aspiration? I should be able to get the cheapest electricity from any source. I should be free from the planning that goes into providing this electricity. Somebody else should take care of all those things. There is a free market which allows electricity today to be available at 3 rupees. Why should I pay 7 rupees, 5 rupees? There is a content provider who gives me better service. Why should I stick to one content provider? The Electricity Act, and I'm coming to the last of such enactments. The Electricity Act 2003 was a beautiful piece of legislation. So what went wrong? Before even analyzing what has gone wrong with that, we are coming through with some other legislation which seeks to set at rest, set right many of the ills that we ascribe to the Electricity Act. The second point, we have it to believe that the content and carriage proposition is driven by the evolved markets of the UK. As someone who has been very closely studying the development of the markets in these developed countries of UK and Australia, I would say that the aspiration certainly is driven by that model, but the achievements will not be driven because we are not willing to accept as a country, as a nation, as a consumer, that we have to pay for what we procure.
The second session was on the independence and role of state in the ambit of amended Act and the role of state regulators.
Well, the subject is independence of the regulator. Mr. Prasher, please, about the topics which are in our session, I think let us try to deliberate about those. Thank you very much.
Now, when the purpose of an amendment is stated to be carrying forward the primary object with which this act was made in 2003, I'll just mention 2 changes which are sought to be made. Now it says that the regulator will fix this ceiling of the tariff. and the distribution companies are free to give a lower tariff. Fine as far as the private sector companies are concerned. But what happens about the public sector distributors? The primary reason for trouble in the power sector has been the reluctance of the state governments to increase the tariff. Everyone knows this is, the basic. Now, if you have said that the tariff fixed by the regulator will be the ceiling and the state government can always give a lower tariff, they'll give a lower tariff. That will result in what we coined the term, invented, the regulatory assets, ultimately, the uncovered deficit. And the uncovered deficit has also been left to the government. The government will decide as to what to do about that uncovered deficit, the regulatory assets. So we'll come to a situation where, as far as the public sector distribution companies are concerned, the Kejriwal syndrome will dominate.
The politicians, at the highest level, the bureaucrats, the secretaries, every time they will say that we want to make more independence to the regulator we want to give. But the actions seem to be that the regulator must be dependent on the government for everything. Even the present day regulators, which are supposed to be more independent than what it will be after the amendments, if amendments are passed. The regulators were dependent on the government for small things, small bit of things, sanction of the manpower, the financial powers, etc., use of the finances which they get in terms of the fees, etc. And they had made them dependent. And everybody is commenting about the efficiency of regulator and all. But regulators are being made inefficient because of the government themselves. So we have to get rid of this kind of a philosophy of management and administration and governance. This is the main root cause, that the governance is very poor.
Very pertinent issues raised. I think we'll talk about this once we hear all our wise men here. Dr. Garg.
Well, I feel the author of the amendment, who would have put together the clauses, would have put some preamble, what is his thought and what he is trying to achieve by this amendment. Because the Electricity Act 2003, it aimed at creating an environment, competition, efficiency, unbundling, creating competition, making the DISCOMs viable. Ultimately, the generation capacity has been added, the transmission projects are being added, but the business model remains that more you do the business, the more you lose. The author has never applied his mind to the basic fact and the basic defect in the model. And the conversion, the essence of the all ills of power sectors is conversion of current into currency. So long as this is not kept as the view or the ultimate objective, consumer gets the service and the current gets converted into currency. No amount of financial surgery, no amount of amendment is going to help.
I entirely agree with Bajaj Sahab that it depends on the character of the person, on how much independence he is able to maneuver for himself. That is very important. It doesn't matter whether he is an engineer, judge or an IAS officer. Our problem of regulation is we have those generic problems which all the institutions and individuals face in India. We are going through that phase, And this Electricity Act, coming to this, is trying to put the blame on regulator and trying to treat them like, headmaster trying to take to task or, doing the performance. I think this is pathetic, We have to, trust the regulator. As Verma-ji said, we have to appoint regulators with a vision.
The third session focused on promoting renewable energy and the need for a separate Renewable Energy Act.
I have worked in the power sector much before the regulators came into picture. I was dealing with power, where we decided what should be the tariff, we decided how it should be cross-subsidized, everything as part of the government. we never let the regulators come in and tell us what should be done. And regulators having come in, whether they are doing a good job of it or a bad job of it, I am not one to sit in judgment. But 2003 Act is a good start. The regulatory commissions are supposed to be independent. Unfortunately, they do not turn out to be as independent as they are made out to be under the Act. Mainly because most of the members, at least at the state level, are selected on a basis which are not entirely objective. And during the period I was heading the Ministry of Renewable Energy, I was the one who was talking about having a separate Renewable Energy Act. I mean, it's not because I was in favor of a new legislation or law. I found someone talked about the number of press announcements that have come. 2005 was the first announcement by the then Power Minister that the Electricity Act would be amended. And as a person who has spent a long time in the government, I never had any faith about a likely amendment in the Electricity Act. I thought, let us push for a new legislation for renewable energy as a whole, which will go beyond electricity. We can talk about heating, coaling, other forms of power.
The amendments into the Electricity Act, specifically looking at the renewables, I would say it is 50-50. We have some things which have been long due on the renewables. Most importantly now, I think what they have done is the definition of renewable energy, which was missing, and there were a lot of litigation around that, around the cogeneration part of it, on the applicability of RPO on cogeneration. That has been cleared out. The other important, I think, aspect is definition of obligated entities, because there also there is a lot of litigation which is currently going on, and it has actually reached up to the level of Supreme Court whether the RPO is applicable on captive consumers or not. The other important component which I think is still missing is any mention of RECs. We have introduced a renewable energy certificate mechanism in 2009, and we have introduced an amendment in the tariff policy in 2010 to accommodate RECs, because there was no amendment which was going on at the time in the Electricity Act to provide a legal basis for RECs. Now in this time when we are doing the amendments, we are still not providing the legal basis for RECs. And this is one of the aspects which the distribution companies and other obligated entities have been using in various forums in the regulatory commissions as well as in high courts and Supreme Courts, that there is no compulsion on them to purchase RECs because it's not mentioned into the Electricity Act. It's an option given, but it is not mandatory. So to revive the REC market, I think a legal provision on RECs under Section 66 would have been a very helpful amendment.